Documents seen by the BBC show that countries, including Saudi Arabia and Australia, have lobbied the UN to play down the need for a rapid move away from fossil fuels. It comes days before the COP26 climate summit. The US House of Representatives is due to vote shortly on whether to hold Steve Bannon, Donald Trump's former close aide, in contempt of Congress. A dispute with Poland over whether EU law should take precedence over national law is threatening to overshadow an EU summit in Brussels. Several leaders say Poland should not receive any pandemic recovery money until the issue is resolved. And the World Health Organization has told the BBC that the coronavirus pandemic will drag on for a year longer than it needs to due to the failure of rich nations to share vaccines with poorer countries.
South Korea launches its first South Korean-produced space rocket from Naro Space Center. The Nuri rocket reached space but failed to send a test satellite into orbit. In Russia, officials report a record 1,036 coronavirus-related deaths. Moscow's mayor announces additional restrictions after the government orders a one-week workplace shutdown starting next week. In Afghanistan, women protest in Kabul demanding education and work, which have been restricted since the Taliban's takeover in August. And India's health ministry announces it has administered 1 billion coronavirus vaccine injections.
Former President Donald Trump is forming a media company and using a SPAC to take it public. Those are shell companies that exist solely to take a separate company public. Trump Media and Technology Group will create a social media platform called Truth Social. The former president's access to social media sites has been restricted following the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Bitcoin has reached a new high after surging past $66,000. The rally came after a first-of-its-kind ETF linked to the cryptocurrency began trading in the U.S. Nearly $1 billion of shares changed hands over the fund's first trading session, making it the second most highly traded ETF debut ever. There are fresh signs that China's cash-strapped real estate giants are in trouble. Evergrande, the country's largest property developer, scrapped plans to sell off one of its key units that would have brought in billions of dollars. It leaves the company looking for alternative ways to ease its liquidity crunch ahead of Saturday's deadline to pay last month's missing $83.5 million of dollar bonds. And in the markets, U.S. futures are pointing to a lower open following a down day in Europe and Asia on the back of those liquidity concerns in China.
We begin with the coronavirus situation here in Japan, where prefectures including Tokyo and Osaka are easing restrictions on bars and restaurants as cases decline. Officials here in Tokyo confirmed 36 new cases on Thursday. The daily tally has been under 50 for the past 5 days. Eateries in the capital, certified as taking thorough steps to prevent infections, are currently being asked to stop serving alcohol by 8 p.m. and close by 9. 85% of all establishments in Tokyo are certified. Starting Monday, they'll be able to welcome customers and serve alcohol at any time without any requests from the authorities to shorten their hours. But they will be urged to check whether customers have coronavirus vaccination certificates before putting 5 or more at the same table. Osaka Prefecture will also lift restrictions on Monday. But officials will urge eateries to limit the time groups spend at the table to about 2 hours. Now, Kyoto Prefecture will drop its requests for shorter hours on Friday. This restaurant will open for the first time in 5 months.
I'm somewhere between extremely excited and anxious. I'm wondering how many regular customers will come back.
Theme parks will also extend opening hours and gradually ease their cap on numbers of guests. Tokyo Disneyland will restart its evening parade next month. Still, health experts monitoring the situation in Tokyo are warning coronavirus cases could surge this winter. Officials in the Shibuya district are worried about Halloween night on October 31st. On past Halloween nights, a scramble crossing that's a local landmark has been swarmed by young people. Some revelers have caused trouble.
To prevent the coronavirus from spreading, we want to suggest people enjoy Halloween at home instead of coming into town.
Officials plan to restrict consumption of alcohol in the area's parks and streets during Halloween weekend. Moving to India, where authorities say the country has passed the milestone of administering 1 billion vaccine doses. People celebrated the occasion on Thursday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited a hospital in the capital, New Delhi, to congratulate the nation. He praised the medical fraternity for its effort in achieving the goal. India initiated its vaccine drive in January. More than 30% of its eligible population are fully vaccinated, while 75% have received a single dose. India is inoculating people over the age of 18 and plans to start giving jabs to children soon. India has reported more than 34 million cases, second only to the United States. Over 450,000 people have died. Infections have plunged since early October to below 20,000 per day. Meanwhile, Singapore has extended its restrictions for another 4 weeks. The measures include limiting social gatherings to just 2 people and working from home. Authorities say the aim is to ease the pressure on the healthcare system. The city-state has seen a rapid increase in infections, hitting a record high of nearly 4,000 on Tuesday. But Singapore is cautiously reopening amid the surge. It's expanded a program that allows quarantine-free entry for fully vaccinated people from 10 countries, including the United States and the UK. More pro-democracy district council members in Hong Kong have been disqualified after their loyalty oaths were declared invalid. This brings the total number of ousted municipal-level politicians to 49. District councillors are now required to take an oath of allegiance to the Hong Kong government. The measure was introduced after the Chinese leadership revised the territory's electoral law, citing the need for Hong Kong to be governed by patriots. 211 district council members, split into 4 groups, began to take the oath in September. The Hong Kong government announced on Thursday the oaths of 16 members in the last group were invalid. The government has accepted the oaths of nearly 60 pro-democracy councillors. But many pro-democracy politicians in Hong Kong still believe they have little chance of participating in politics. Attention is focused on how many pro-democracy candidates will be allowed to run in the Legislative Council election in December. Taiwan's government has announced its foreign minister will visit Slovakia and 2 other European nations next week. The government said on Thursday, Joseph Wu will go to Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Poland. He'll speak at a forum in Slovakia next Tuesday. Wu will then meet with the Czech Senate President and the mayor of Prague. A detailed itinerary has not been released. The announcement comes as a Taiwanese business delegation led by 2 cabinet ministers is on a European tour. The delegation arrived in Slovakia on Thursday and will visit the Czech Republic and Lithuania through October 30th. The European countries are strengthening relations with Taiwan and have provided it with COVID-19 vaccines. The head of the Czech Senate visited Taiwan last year. Lithuania and Taiwan are preparing to set up representative offices on each other's soil. Separately, the European Parliament has adopted a resolution asking the European Union to deepen its political ties with Taiwan. It calls on the bloc to play an active role in achieving peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. Now, the Taiwanese visits have drawn a sharp reaction from the Chinese Foreign Ministry.
We express our strong dissatisfaction and resolute opposition to the permission for visits given by relevant countries.
The spokesperson also criticized the European Parliament's resolution.
The European Parliament should immediately stop its acts and words that undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
He said relevant parties should not underestimate the Chinese people's determination and ability to defend their nation's territory and sovereignty. Next, an attempt by South Korea to test launch the country's first domestically built rocket has ended in failure. According to the Korea Aerospace Research Institute, the launch was seen as a major step toward jump-starting South Korea's space program. NHK World's Kim Chan-ju reports.
5, 4, 3, 엔진 점화.
The 3-stage liquid fuel rocket called the Nuri blasted off at 5 p.m. Thursday from the NATO Space Center here in Ko-Hung County. The liftoff was smooth. The center confirmed 15 minutes later that the rocket had successfully deployed its satellite dummy. However, after 30 minutes of monitoring, South Korean President Moon Jae-in said the Nuri rocket completed all flight sequences but failed to put the dummy satellite payload into orbit. He cited problems during the final steps. The Korea Aerospace Research Institute, which designed the rocket, had earlier predicted that it had only a 30% chance of success. The failure is seen as a setback for the country's space program. South Korea aims to build a domestic project that would allow it to join the exclusive group of nations capable of launching a satellite of over 1.5 tons. The launch was live-streamed and drew a nationwide audience. Unlike the Naro rocket in 2013, which made use of Russian technology, the Nuri was built purely with domestic technologies, from the initial concept to design, production, as well as test and launch operations. Around 300 companies took part in the project together with the South Korean government, investing a total of $1.8 billion since 2010. But not all is lost. President Moon Jae-in recently said the country intends to expand its investment in space technology. The government is seeking an annual space budget of $553 million for 2022 in a bid to nurture the country's nascent domestic space sector. Officials at the state-run Korea Aerospace Research Institute say they plan on carrying out 5 more test launches between now and 2027. Kim Chan-ju, NHK World, Kohung.
Organizers of the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics say they blocked about 450 million cyber attacks on their systems and networks during the Games. They say there are no reports of any impact on operations. The organizers announced the figure at a news conference on Thursday, along with representatives from NTT. The Japanese telecommunications firm was in charge of cybersecurity for the Games. The officials said the Tokyo Games faced more than twice the number of cyber attacks reported during the 2012 London Games, when comparable data were available. The attacks included denial of service incidents, which involve sending massive amounts of data to disrupt access to web pages. There is also so-called password spraying to obtain access to systems by guessing passwords. The organizers say they deterred all the attacks, which apparently came from a wide range of countries and regions. The Tokyo 2020 Executive Director of Technology Services said such attacks will likely increase. He added Tokyo officials want to pass their know-how to their counterparts for the 2024 Paris Games. In other news, an advisory panel to Japan's justice minister has proposed introducing the use of GPS devices on criminal defendants who are deemed a flight risk when they are released on bail. The panel presented its report to Justice Minister Furukawa Yoshihisa on Thursday. The proposal came in response to a rise in bail-jumping incidents. These include a high-profile case in 2019 when former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn fled to Lebanon on a private jet. He had been awaiting trial on charges of alleged financial misconduct. The proposal calls for defendants released on bail to wear GPS devices if the court requires them to do so. The devices would help law enforcement officials track and detain them if they enter unauthorized areas, such as airports and seaports. The panel also proposes a prison term of up to 2 years for defendants out on bail who fail to make court appearances or are away from their court-designated residence longer than allowed. The Justice Ministry plans to present legislation for the revisions to a regular session of the Diet next year. Moving now to the weather, autumn is in full force over Japan, with some mountains starting to see their first snowfall of the season. Our meteorologist Jonathan Oh has more on the situation there and elsewhere in our World Weather Report.
Hello, we had another day of some chillier weather up toward the north, where we had some rain and even some snow. Some locations getting their first snow of the season. Here's a look at some of the video. It's really nice if you take a look at it, as the first snow of the season observed at Mount Tate in Toyama Prefecture Thursday morning, 9 days later than normal. 4 days later than last year. The staff of a hotel located at the elevation of 2,500 meters said there was blowing snow in the morning and about 20 centimeters of snow accumulated, and that's a beautiful sight right there. Ishikawa Prefecture's Mount Haku also had the first snow of autumn. Now,